Good morning, everyone. Can you see me and hear me? Hello, hello. How are you today? Thanks for joining me. In case you haven't met me before, hi, I'm Christine Elder, and I'm a naturalist, environmental educator, and visual artist. And so hopefully you have your handouts. I made a 3-page handout of all very high resolution, nice images for you. The first two are of our mountain zebra. And the third page is the plains zebra, just in a bunch of different positions for you to practice field sketching them. Okay, so just so you know, this is a different species than we're focusing on today, but I had lots of good images of them from various in various poses. Okay, and so yeah, like I said, we're going to start with a sketch, and that will be 30 minutes as promised. And then we are going to spend a little time just talking about the biology of the mountain zebra. And then at the very end, I'll tell you how you can see a real life zebra with me in Africa in September. So if you're new here, I start with this video that I pre-recorded in my studio to make it easier for me to talk at the same time. And you see, I have the image. We're looking at the side view of this male zebra, as David Attenborough would call them. And this is the Cape Mountain zebra, which lives in the Cape area of South Africa. We'll talk about that more later. But as you see, I have an image here of the skeleton, just to remind you that this is in the horse family and kind of looks similar to other four-legged herbivores that live in Africa and across grasslands all over the world. So just always remember that when you're sketching, to think about those angles that you see. And I do have a whole course on mammals, and we talk a lot about mammal anatomy in that course. I'll mention that at the end. But just want to briefly tell you that because it's really easy when you're drawing a zebra to just get confused with all those stripes. So we really just want to start with the silhouette of the outline of the zebra and noticing how this zebra is different from the other three species in having this cute little loose part of the skin here on the neck called a dewlap. And so that's the really main obvious difference that we'll talk more about later. But again, as we're sketching it, think about these angles that we see, noticing how the head is quite large. So their proportions are kind of more like a donkey, a large donkey or a small mule. So they're very stocky compared to horses. Got a kind of a larger head and muzzle than most horses. And then as you're drawing it, remember we've got the shoulder blade here. We've got the angle of the shoulder, and we got the elbow right here. And then the kind of what we would call the knees, but these are the forelimbs. So this really isn't the knee. This is more like the wrist here. And then going on to the angle of the back, we have a little bump here, the withers, which aren't as obvious as in a horse. Then the rump, and then this whole area here has the hip there, has the knee, which is very much hidden right there above the private parts there, and then we have the ankle there and the wrist sort of. And then we're hiding the hooves in the grass, which is kind of lucky for us because they're a little bit more challenging to sketch. Okay, so anyway, let's get started. Get my mouse out of the way here. So first we're going to start just kind of in the upper part of the page and noticing that curve of the neck and the withers and the back and the rump, staying very light and loose. So even drawing lighter than I have here. Then looking at the width of the belly. So usually when you're drawing these grazers, you know, the width of the belly compared to the length of the legs is really going to help you differentiate between the species. So like an elephant is very broad in the belly, whereas a giraffe is very narrow compared to the length of the legs. So now kind of a triangle for the head. And again, we're just blocking in these proportions first very lightly and going to modify them later. So kind of a triangle for the head and then the jaw area. and then the angle of the ears. So we just get this all kind of symbolic shapes here. Then the neck, and noticing that dewlap, or loose area of skin that's unique to the mountain zebras. And then just the angle of the legs. So noticing coming down from the shoulder blade. So this zebra is sort of walking, kind of slowly meandering through its habitat, through his habitat, this young stallion. And then the other leg, and just a kind of a line showing like the front line of the leg first. We'll get the details later. So I like to just lightly block in everything so we have the proportions correct before we get too married, to any one line. So the zebra is lifting the back left leg. So notice those angles of the the knee and the ankle there. And again, referring to that skeleton on your lower left, just to kind of remind you where those angles are, because it's easy to get confused with all those stripes. And I talk a lot about the different theories about stripes in my other workshops that I'll tell you about later. Then their chest line, and then a little bit more detail now on the legs, looking at my distances there, double checking. So getting the front and back edge. Wait a minute. So I have a question. So let me, again, I go into this a lot more in my mammals course, as well as my longer workshops on these guys. But in terms of the parts, especially the legs. So in the forelegs, we have the withers here and the shoulder coming down to the angle of the shoulder blade there. And then this is the elbow here. And then the kind of what they call the knee in a horse, but we realize that this is our forelegs. And then the hoof is hidden. And then back here, we have the flank with the stifle there, which is actually technically the angle of the real knee. And then what we call in horse speak the hock, and then the hooves. So again, just noticing those angles. Okay, so yeah, anyway, Jay, there are sort of confusing terminology with mammals, fore and hind limbs, and tending to pretend all four limbs are like legs, like our legs. But we have to remember we have four legs and rear legs. Okay, sorry, keep going. Where am I? Okay, there we go. Okay, so anyway, getting that left forelimb. And that's all, again, we're going to hide that stuff in the grass to save us some time. Now getting the a little bit more realism to the head here and the kind of line of the back, and thinking of the actual neck and not the upright mane. And a little arch to the back and the hips, or croup. Hi, Milana. Thank you so much for joining us. We've missed you. And then their tail, they kind of have a skinnier tail than horses. It's shorter, and the top half is unhaired, unlike a horse. Okay, so now we're going to work on the head. So we see a close-up on my slideshow of the head to help you. So looking at the angles of the ears first, they have sort of bigger ears than horses in general. Again, bit more like a mule. And then the other forelock there and the ear behind the forelock. So noticing the ears at two different angles, so they should look a little different. And the left ear should be a little bit bigger because it's closer to us. Now the angles of the head. So we've got the forehead or poll area, and then the bridge of the nose with a little angle for the zebra's right eye that's mostly hidden. And then we've got the muzzle area with the mouth and the nostril and the chin. So I could have made mine a little thicker there, my muzzle, to make it look more beefy. It looks a little bit more like an Arabian horse. So make sure yours is stocky enough, because they do have kind of stocky, bulky proportions compared to the fine lines of a horse. Now placing the eye, noticing the angle of the zebra's right eye and then the zebra's left eye, where it's located, kind of a plumb line down from the middle of the ears. And leaving a little highlight to make it look alive. Double checking the length of my head. Pretty good. But again, I would make your muzzle maybe a little thicker than mine. Mine's a little delicate. So those proportions are important, especially when you start drawing different breeds of horses. And I have done workshops that you can check out in my mammals course on wild Mustangs and Przewalski's horses and draft horses, as well as Grevy's and Plains zebras. And I did give you a discount link in the chat box to that course. It's a very comprehensive course on mammals. Okay, now coming down to the neck, we want to add the line for that upright mane. And some zebras have kind of a taller mane than others. And I'm kind of showing where the darker parts of the mane are and using my left index finger to kind of keep track. But every single zebra has unique stripes, although each species has some basic stripes we'll talk about later. But an individual's stripes are as unique as a human's fingerprints. Okay, now to the withers. Again, not as obvious as in a horse, but we do have a little gentle sway to the back and then coming up to the hips or croup area. And then the tail, you see the tail is set very high on the horse's rump. And it also looks high because there's no fur up as opposed to domestic horses on the top third. So make sure that's a firm line there at the top third of the tail. And then get some little hairs there. Of course, all these grazing mammals use their tail to swat flies. Okay, now back to the neck, and we want to emphasize that dewlap because that's part of the way you're going to identify this as a mountain zebra species. Equus zebra. And this is the subspecies, the Cape Mountain zebra, Equus zebra. Okay, down to that front leg and getting that quote unquote knee joint there. Just very slight swelling there to the leg. And we're hiding the hooves in the nice grass. See that big thing I'm drawing right now? Anybody know the name of that? That big black thing there that I just drew, that is called the chestnut. And that's a area of bare skin and is very large on zebras, much larger than on horses. And it's funny that only horses have a chestnut on between the rear legs as well. The wild horses only have it on the front legs, which is funny. Okay, now to that other front leg or forearm, whatever you want to call it, and getting that elbow region. So it would be more obvious if there weren't the stripes, but this elbow and then the quote unquote knee. And remembering that skeleton we looked at earlier, and then hiding those in the grass and behind the rocks. These guys live in very rugged land, as their name suggests, the mountain zebra. So I'm hiding that hoof behind a little rock, like it shows, a little boulder. These guys live on rolling mountain hills and very steep and rugged, not like the plains zebra out in the big, like Serengeti of Africa. Okay, now their belly, double checking the depth of that and make sure it looks real fat. If you ever seen zebras or look at a video of zebras out in the wild, they look really fat and bloated, and not just the pregnant mares, but it's partly because they're herbivores, kind of like a cow. They really have to digest their food, and it gets really gassy. And so they look quite bloated often. Okay, then this is a male. So we got his private parts there. And then we're going to put the hip area, noticing that hip, and then the stifle or an anatomical actual knee joint. And then the rump. And again, trying to emphasize that this zebra is walking. So it's got that lifted up and back towards the tail. It's almost touching the tail. Now, of course, this doesn't have to be exact because they can have lots of different positions as they're walking, but for practice, we're just going to do this. And as you're drawing this lifted up leg, notice the negative shape that we're going to have between the left and right leg, where you can see the brown grass in the background. And that hoof, we're just going to hide that. It's also a little bit hidden behind a little boulder. I always drew horses when I was a kid because I wanted a horse, and I finally got a horse in 5th grade and had horses my whole life. And you probably know I volunteer with rescue horses and Mustangs here in Oregon. But anyway, I would love to draw horses when I was a kid, and I just hid their legs between tall grass blades so that I didn't have to deal with it. But anyway, as you're drawing that last leg, again, noticing that nice negative shape, that little triangle between the left and right rear leg. Okay, how we doing? Are we got the silhouette basically? I'm just cleaning things up. You see, I really haven't used my eraser much yet. And so now I'm just going to do some little modifications, like getting a little bit more of a curve on that back. Good, Milana. I'm glad you're doing well. Hi, Evelyn. Good. I'm glad. So yeah, when you're drawing something, you always want to start with the silhouette, especially if you're out in the field, you're just going to do the silhouette. If I was doing field sketches of zebras in the field, like I'm going to be doing in September, I would probably just be working on their kind of behaviors and silhouettes and wouldn't bother with all those stripes. Maybe just a couple, but they're really unmistakable in their habitat. They're not going to be mistaken for anything else, except there are a few locations in South Africa where the plains zebra species overlaps with this mountain zebra. So now I'm going to start continuing to work on that upright mane. So if you had more time out in the field, then you would continue to get some more detail. So I'm just pressing harder now to double check, and I'm not necessarily exactly tracing what I already have. I'm continuing. I encourage you to continue to ground truth, which means just look at your source photos. Like I said, I probably should have made that muzzle a little thicker. Now, of course, being dark pigmented, it actually looks maybe thicker than it actually is, but I might have made it just a few millimeters wider. But anyway, as you're doing this last outline to get your silhouette, just always double checking and feeling free to make corrections at this point, because you don't want to spend all this time and then putting all the zebra stripes on them and then being unhappy with the shape of your silhouette. And again, the withers and the slight sway of the back, the rump, firming up the tail. Remember, the upper half or third does not have any tail. Okay, so now that we have the outline, we're going to switch to a dull shading pencil and noticing where the sun is. So that's always the second thing, is getting that three-dimensional form before you add the stripes, noticing the direction of the sun. And it's a little hard to tell the direction of the sun from here. We know it's midday, but we're going to choose a direction. So sometimes when the weather's cloudy or it's early or late in the afternoon and there isn't much sun, it's good for you to just choose a direction of sun. Like, see how we have this shadowing behind that left ear? That does help to tell us the angle of the sun. And I think I've got it just about right. And so I'm just using the side of my pencil and kind of blending it with my finger, or you could use a blending stomp. And then the legs aren't flat, so those are vertical cylinders. So there's gonna have some shadowing, and shadowing behind the elbow, shadowing in the belly. And the hip. And there's a little skinnier part. You can't see that well right there where the flank is skinny. And then we see very obviously a cast shadow on the back right leg. So that's an easy one. So we do this before we add the stripes. It's going to give us a sense of this hot, sunny day. Although this part of South Africa can be quite cool along the coast, cool and windy. Now we're going to add some color. So you see on the zebra's muzzle, it's got a black muzzle. Black is created from melanin pigment, which is a strengthening pigment. And then it's a tan or sort of what we call a burnt sienna above there, above the black of the muzzle. And you can see even here, the stripes really aren't jet black. And it does look like this zebra might have been rolling a bit in the red um, dust of this part of Africa. You can see in the background picture, a lot of red dust. So you might not even use a pure black for the stripes. You might use a very rich, what we would call a maybe a burnt umber instead of a black, if you had colored pencils or watercolors. Okay, so I'm going to stop that for a minute because we've done the shadowing, we've done the silhouette, and at this point also, I mentioned this lots of times, but if you printed your picture out and if you turn it upside down, it's a lot easier to see those shadows. It makes your brain kind of give up on naming things and looks at shapes and colors and values more. So you can see very easily the shadow here, the shadow here, the shadow behind the ear. Can you guys see that? And so that always helps to do that. Yes, Evelyn, you say upside down, help me see the belly was too small. Right. So turning things upside down when you're first doing the silhouette is good as well. And then let's see, here's the other species we sketched. Maybe you sketched this last year with me, and this is in my mammals course. And again, if you turn this guy upside down, you can really see the shadowing on the belly. This is the Grevy's zebra, which also lacks stripes going all the way around its belly. So both the Grevy's and the mountain zebras have kind of a tan belly without stripes compared to the plains zebra, as you can see in page 3 of our handout, has the stripes going all the way around the belly, right? Okay. So anyway, this guy too, you can see how we added the 3-dimensional shadowing. And one thing I love to do that I think I did in this tutorial, and I've done in lots of other tutorials, is to use a blending stomp and to pulverize my charcoal or my graphite on one of these little sandpapery things. And then that makes it a little bit easier to get a lot of graphite on. So I'm not demonstrating that today, but that's something to know. And so you can, get the graphite on here or the charcoal and rub it on. And then again, emphasizing these shadows. And again, the more you know about the anatomy of an animal like the horse family, the more you know where the shadows should be, because you understand where the bones and the angles of the joints are, as well as the muscles. So like here, I could even add a little more shadowing behind the jaw in this line here, behind the elbow. What else? In the shadowed other leg here and down here without getting rid of all the white. And that rear leg should still be probably a little bit shadowed more. And then the true knee and then the flank. So you see how I do that? Okay. And even all these other areas aren't flat. They have some rounding to them. Again, referring back to those skeleton pictures. Okay, so let's keep going. How you guys doing? Okay, so now we're going to add the stripes. And so the main thing to notice about the stripes is, again, every single zebra is different. So you don't have to try to do this exact individual, Zeb the zebra. You can kind of do your own thing, but there are just a few rules if you want it to look like the mountain zebra species, which is, again, noticing we've got the dewlap with its stripes, and we've got no stripes on the belly. And then you might notice on the rump and the top of the tail, it's a little bit hard to see from this angle, but I'll show you some other pictures later on. You've got kind of a gridiron pattern of parallel lines, and that is different than compared to the Grevy's zebra and compared to the Plains zebra. So some things are very subtle. So anyway, that's kind of the main thing. And just again, noticing we've got some parallel stripes on the forehead and some kind of arced stripes on the cheek. And then the rest of the body has sort of up and down stripes until you get to the thicker stripes that are going more horizontal over here. Also, they have stripes all the way down their legs, which not all zebras have as much. Okay, so anyway, let's start getting those because as usual, we're going over time. So let's start doing our forehead stripes or parallel forehead stripes. And it's a little bit, yeah, sometimes easier if you're using a soft sketching pencil here. And I'm just using my orange pencil to help me stay slow and stay focused on the exact part I'm doing. Otherwise, I tend to go too fast because I'm ADHD, if you didn't realize that already. These stripes can be confusing. And when a herd of zebras that is known as a dazzle or a zeal is running by a predator, those stripes kind of help to blur them and help them to be harder to see. Also, the stripes will help to camouflage them as well in certain situations, especially where the mountain zebra lives in these kind of rocky cliff areas with lots of boulders and shrubs and cliffs and tall grasses. Then the stripes help them to be camouflaged a bit as well. But there's another theory about the stripes that they help to cool the animal. And they also, another theory that they help to confuse biting flies. Okay, anyway, going down the tail, again, we've got sort of a grid pattern from the rump to the tail that's going there. And then these thicker, we want to make these pretty thick. And then more individuals of any species you see, like a zebra here, the more you'll know what kind of what's normal and then what's abnormal. And notice these stripes, how they're wrapping around. So they're not just straight lines. So notice how, especially like on the hips, they're wrapping around and getting a little thinner at the edges. Now going one more time over everything, firming up everything, the ears, the fuzzy fur in the ears, some darker forelock. That's the front of the mane there. And darkening up the stripes of the mane. And then darkening up the pigment on the muzzle. So I'm pressing harder and then also trying to notice the width of these stripes and get those a little bit more realistic as well. And of course, you could spend all day getting these stripes exactly realistic, but we're not going for a zoological illustration here. We're trying to do a little quicker field sketch feeling here. And noticing how those stripes wrap around, especially as we come down to the chest. You'll notice how they wrap around the zebra's right chest down there. See right there. And I'm going to put it in shadow a little bit, emphasizing the shadows. Down onto the legs. The stripes are thicker on the outside of the leg than they are on the inside. Making sure you put that big chestnut on there, that bare gray part of the skin. I'm using the side of my pencil so I can get some more graphite down. And as we go to the belly, remember those lines fade out on this species of zebra. Only the plains zebra has the stripes going all the way around the belly. And that's probably the photos you've seen most often because the plains zebra is the most common and widespread of the three species of zebra. Oh, Evelyn, you own Norwegian fjords and they have stripes in their legs. Oh, I love that breed. So pretty. I love all those big draft horses. We've got a Friesian at our rescue because not all of our rescue horses are wild Mustangs. Yeah, I love those. And the Gypsy Vanners, another one of my favorite kind of draft horses. Yeah, our Friesian, his name is Dutch, which makes sense because they're Dutch in origin from the Netherlands. And darkening up those hairs. Yeah, just doing a little polishing up. And of course, you can work on this a lot more while I show you a few slides. And I'm just adding a little bit of disheveled grass blades here to kind of put him in his habitat there. And giving a little attention to the eye because that's really the windows to the soul. So you want that to really stand out. And he was eating some grass, so I put some grass blades in his head. Okay, right, and then adding a few more details. So again, the reason we're drawing zebras today is this International Zebra Day, and so there are three species, and I've talked about those before, and some of those have many subspecies within them, especially the plains zebra. And they, are more shaped like a donkey or a mule, depending on their species. Their voice is not like a horse; it's more like a bray or a snort, or even like a bark of a dog. And they can't run as fast as horses, but they have really good endurance. And often, zebras will do the zigzag running to escape predators. And so the mountain zebra, again, is just in southern Africa. It's in the country of South Africa along the um, Eastern Cape region near the coast and in the mountains near the coast. And also, there's another subspecies of it called Hartman's mountain zebra that's in nearby Namibia, which is just north west of this area of South Africa. And this is a mama and her baby. So zebras live in herds, kind of two different groupings. One is the mother and the babies and their stallion that protects the herd. And then there's usually a bachelor herds of older males, which are too old to live at home with the mares. They've been kicked out, but too young to get their own harem, right? And so this is just a cute picture of the baby. You can see the stripes are a little bit different color. And also noticing, oh, the one thing you couldn't see in the other photo is look at their ears. So zebras have kind of even striping on their ears, the backs of their ears. And also notice how different the striping is on this one than on the one we just drew. But it still has the dewlap that the mountain zebra species has, as well as that gridiron pattern on the rump going down to the parallel lines on the tail. Um, and like I mentioned, they are called mountain zebra because compared to the plains or the Grevy zebra species, they live in the mountains. Although those mountains might be near the coast, like we see here in this photograph. So they're living on the coast, right at the very tip of South Africa. So kind of where the Atlantic and the Indian Ocean mix and come together. And they live in this amazingly beautiful habitat that's unique in all of the world. It's called fynbos, Fynbos. And this is one of the most biologically, that is botanically diverse habitats in the world. This actually region of the Cape region of South Africa has nearly 10,000 different species of plants. So these guys are grazing and browsing. Mostly on grass, like species called red grass and weeping love grass and restios, which is another endemic of the fynbos habitat. Cheryl, yeah, they're black. Their skin is black with white stripes. Great question. And that black skin, like is common in things that don't have any fur, like hippos and rhinos and elephants. They have that dark skin, which is strengthened by melanin. And melanin is a pigment that helps protect from abrasion and from sun and all that stuff. Okay. So anyway, again, here's another picture showing that unique dewlap of this species. So these two subspecies of mountain zebras, the one that lives on the coast here on the Cape, is much rarer, but been hunted and persecuted for hundreds of years. There's probably less than 5,000, I think, compared to the Hartmann's mountain zebra subspecies living in Namibia, which has a greater range and I think more like about 25,000 species. And then again, noticing the stripes, and they also have this beautiful muzzle with this rusty burnt sienna color. So I'm going to show you my basically 1.5 minute video you will love on my African tour. So this is happening in September, so check it out. That's my tour. And so I am leading 6 people, and I believe we've already sold 2 seats. Put a link in the chat box. So this is a 2-week tour. It's my first tour I'm leading again since the pandemic, and I'm so excited to be guiding again. I'll be doing some other tours, hopefully in the neotropics, and sometime soon, hopefully. But this is the first one, and I'm really proud to be pairing up with Tropical Birding Tours, which is a global tour company that leads over 100 or 200 tours all over the world every year, and they're pairing up with me. Okay, well, take care, and I hope to see you at the pangolin sketching workshop. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.